Back on Get Up, and it's time to run the Hurry Up with Kimberly Martin Kmart. We got the game tomorrow night, Rams and Seahawks. What do we know about Davante Adams?
Ooh, I know that Sean McVay is going to use every opportunity to try to get Davante Adams to play, but we're still not there yet. He didn't practice yesterday. They're on a short week, but he's going to take it up to game time to see if Davante can give it a go in any capacity.
Next up, we've got the Eagles. What do we know about Lane Johnson and Saquon Barkley? What did I read yesterday?
Yeah, same deal. So with Lane Johnson, the hope in Philly is that he would suit up this week. He's missed the last 4 games, I believe. But they had a walkthrough yesterday. He did not participate. Neither did Saquon. A lot of guys did not participate for this walkthrough, but that's one of those sort of rest days. With Lane Johnson, though, he's missed the last 4 games. They want to get him on the field before you suit him up. Hopefully this is the week.
The last one. Are the Dolphins considering making a change at quarterback?
You betcha. Picture this. Mike McDaniels is open to a quarterback change. After the game, he said, I don't want to make any rash decisions. And then the next day, he was like, actually, quarterback play, not good enough. Everything is on the table, which is very odd. Normally, you see head coaches do the opposite. They're cautious after watching the tape. They're like, we see good things. But in Miami, change might be a brewing.
Well, this is a fascinating one because we talked about it yesterday, guys. Jeff and Nick are here with us on Tuesdays as well as Wednesdays. For those of you who are not with us every morning, and I asked the question, if you're the owner of the Dolphins and you look at the 2 most important people in your organization, your coach and your quarterback, do you feel like you've got the right guys in those spots going forward? And yesterday, one of them made it seem very much like he doesn't think the other one is the right guy, right? I mean, that's what this is, isn't it?
I like Mike McDaniel, what he's been able to accomplish there. And I know that you look at a coach's resume, you want to look at playoff wins and you want to look at championships, but it's also commendable that he came in and inherited Tua and turned him into a quarterback that you went and paid, which may be a drawback, but it demonstrates his ability to build an offense around a team that didn't have an offensive line. This year, it felt like they hit the bottom. Like, we were making jokes on this show about how it was over down there.
Right.
And they fought back. They built an offense around a rushing attack. That's a little bit smoke and mirrors, but it's effective.
Yeah.
They built it and had success. And that, to me, speaks to a coach that is able to adapt and somebody who I want to keep and grow with.
What do you think? Here's the way I see it. Okay, if you just sort of look over the series of events that have taken place. They drafted Tua. That started looking like it might be a significant mistake, especially after Justin Herbert gets drafted behind him. They pass on Herbert. So they bring in a coach, specifically Mike McDaniel, fix that guy.
That's right.
They brought him in there to fix Tua, and he did it.
Yeah.
He did as much with Tua as could probably be done. I myself am interested in seeing what Mike McDaniel might do with a different quarterback in a different situation, running an entirely. I think they're running an offense that they think can work solely based around the somewhat limited skill set of their quarterback.
Well, they were, but now they have started to morph it into more of what Mike McDaniel has been throughout the course of his career, which is he has been a run game coordinator. Right. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. He really comes from a philosophy that says, hey, look, we're going to actually bludgeon you with inside and outside zone, and we're going to play action you, and that's how we're going to really attack. With Tua, it became very much so too pass heavy. Yeah. A lot of timing, slants, attacks between the numbers. They push the ball outside the numbers, but not as much as they really need to. And look, I'll tell you what, it is a departure from what Mike has told us when we have met with him during production meetings, as far as him, kind of alluding to the fact that, hey, everything is on the table now. Because you're absolutely right. He did rehab Tua. Tua was in shambles when Brian Flores left there. It was in absolute shambles. Mike rehabilitated him, got him to a certain level, and I think maybe Tua's bumped his head up on his ceiling now. So you're right. Look, I agree. If I'm Stephen Ross, if I'm the management team down there, I'm thinking, now what could he do if he could really implement a system similar to what San Francisco and LA have with a quarterback that he picks?
Well,
maybe they do that.
Here's the great part. He can show us right now.
Maybe they do.
Right? So bring in Quinn Ewers or bring in Zach Wilson. Show me what you got. Here's a dress rehearsal. No, listen. You have seen Shanahan put together teams. I'm not saying you got to win every game, but show me what your offense is going to look like with somebody different. Because here's the deal. Wherever you're going to have to either go draft one or you're going to have to go buy one. And depending on how much cash Stephen Ross wants to spend.
Buy one.
Okay, so you got $100 million in the one that you're getting rid of. Yeah. So now you're going to go pay the other one. Okay, so you got to show me. So go prove to me if I'm not sure. Don't be sure. So there's two other guys. Yep. Go show me what you got on your roster, and go show me what your offense really looks like.
In a related story, the dead money cap.
Brutal.
Way more than Russell Wilson's was.
But I agree with Jeff though. Like these games matter, and maybe it's not the result whether you win or lose. Right now, you have an opportunity. Demonstrate your value as a head coach. Show me why I will be stupid to let you go, and someone else is waiting to pick you up. And if it's coordinating the run and creating a serviceable offense around Ewers or Wilson, I love it. I'm going to stick with you. If between now and the end of the season, this team falls apart, I'm good.
I think what hurts Mike McDaniels is, as we've been saying, he's an offensive-minded coach. Your job is to fix Tua. You see Ben Johnson going to Chicago. In no time, turn them around. Mike McDaniel in Seattle. We're talking about them as a Super Bowl contender. And then you're watching Mike McDaniel over these years, and you just don't know. And I feel like I've covered enough coaching regimes and GM searches and all that to feel like if you are not sure about the guy or the quarterback, it just isn't good. The difference with Tua, though, the money. Yeah. What you want to, like, it's going to handcuff him.
Well, the one thing I will say that's different from Chicago's situation and Seattle's situation is in Miami, they already got rid of Chris Greer, the general manager. Right. So the powers that be have already determined, well, you were part of the problem.
Right.
As far as how we rebuilt this thing. Okay, so they determined that already.
Yeah.
In Seattle, look, John Schneider is going to be there for life, probably. He has survived numerous different coaching changes, so they obviously believe in him, and Chicago management never thought about getting rid of Ryan Poles. They didn't think that personnel was the issue. I'm not saying Mike's not part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying in Miami, they've clearly have established a hierarchy of how they thought this thing went down.
The hardest thing about making these decisions in football is there's so many parts that are interconnected. It's almost impossible to disentangle who's responsible for what, who's responsible for this.
Do the Chiefs need to kind of blow up this roster while Patrick is rehabbing and getting himself back together again? Or is this more little tweaks and turns here and there? No, is this a teardown in KC?
There's some major improvements that need to happen here. First and foremost, they've got to get Patrick someone who can turn around to as a bell cow back, who can get him 4 and 5 and rip ball 15, 20, 30-yard runs on a regular basis. And Brett Veach knows this. He knows he has some time to go to work this offseason. At wide receiver, he's got to get himself a true number one, a true X. As Devontae Adams told me one time, a guy who, when you know they're going to him, he can still make the play anyway. They got to get that, and they got to get Chris Jones some help. Yes. They got to get a guy who can win one-on-one on a consistent basis, a guy who is a true game closer.
So let me ask you this. In Field Yates' most recent mock draft, he gave them Jeremiah Love, the outstanding running back from Notre Dame. That was done before the injury to Patrick Mahomes. My feeling is after that, there's so many. I get it. If you got Patrick and you're trying to load up and make another run, then that makes sense to me. Now that you've lost Patrick and you're probably going to spend a year rebuilding the roster anyway, are we starting with a running back?
Yeah, I still don't think that's a terrible idea. Their offensive line was very injured. It's not that their offensive line is bad. I think a healthy version of that O-line is very good.
So we're counting on them getting that group getting itself back.
Yeah, I think obviously you make more additions in that situation also, but I think it's either Jeremiah Love, a running back like that, or it's an X. If you're looking at the offensive side of the ball, it depends who's available. If there's a pass rusher that you think can change the game, then you go there. But I don't think it's crazy to go up to running back. Running backs are something that you want when you think you're close. And I think that as long as Mahomes is there, they're close.
I would add, everyone's assuming that Travis Kelce is done. He has not indicated that at all. They in that building have not been given any indication of that. And the fact that, hey, well, Kelce's done and Chris Jones is done, slow down on that. They still think they're a really good team in that building, and there might be left in the tank some stuff.
Yeah, as far as the running back is concerned, look, during my time with Andy in Philadelphia, Andy's always had a good running back.
Absolutely.
Whether it was gives him the ball.
But he's always had a good running back. Whether it was Westbrook or whether it was Shady McCoy, he always had dudes. Deuce Staley, he always had guys. They haven't had one in Kansas City. They need to get one.
All right, let's go to the Cowboys. What is the Cowboys? Their season is now over as far as playoff are concerned. What is their number one offseason priority?
They got to get coverage defenders in the back end. Yep. They have got to get people on the corner or at safety that can turn the football over and defend one-on-one in the deep part of the field, whether that be between the numbers or outside. They just don't have it. Look, they've shown that they have addressed the first two levels of this defense.
That's right.
That you can't bully them around anymore, and they have enough speed and playmaking ability at linebacker to be able to defend the middle of the field. But the secondary is a problem, a big problem, and they've got to address it.
Jeff, how close are they?
listen, they got a great foundation. I said this yesterday. I think they have all the pieces and parts. Once you start taking care of your offensive line, young offensive line that's good young running back, one of the best QBs in the game, two really good wide receivers, like they're stacked up and loaded. And to Lewis's point, the interior portion of their defense, and listen, getting coverage guys on the back end will help them create more pass rush on their front end as well from their edges. So I like where they are.
The issue is they're paying Trayvon Diggs $90 million to be defensive back. They're paying Deron Bland a huge contract to be a defensive back, and their biggest weakness is defensive back. Now, the Diggs situation is one that's being underreported, and there's some real curiosities. There hasn't played since week 6. They're saying it's a concussion. They thought he might be able to go this week. He was on the sidelines in their biggest game of the season. When you're paying Bland and Diggs that money and you're saying, well, we got to go all in at defensive back, you have to hit in the draft, and you got to get some guys at value.
The one thing they've done is draft well historically, and so we'll see if they do it again. And then the last one. This one is, I find it an absolutely fascinating question for Lewis, our burning question. Has Jaxson Dart proven to you that he is the franchise quarterback for the New York Giants?
I think on the football field, I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's nothing he cannot do that would lead you to believe that this guy is not the answer for you, provided that he goes through the natural maturation process, specifically as it relates to preserving his body and keeping himself out of harm's way and not taking unnecessary hits. And I think that's something that's teachable. That's not something that he's just going to be afflicted with for the rest of his career and just going to be hard-headed and put himself in harm's way. But this guy can operate under center. He can operate from the pocket. He can operate outside the pocket. He can operate a hurry-up type of fast-paced offense. He can do it all. They've got their dude. He just needs to mature, and they need to really get him some help.
Okay, so I 100% was in that line of thinking. And then our colleague, Chris Big Dog Canty, as we call him, on Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, brought up something that I have to confess I hadn't been thinking about at all, which is to say that if you're 100% in on Jaxson Dart, there's more of a gamble of that than you might think.
If you stay with Jaxson Dart, you better be right. Because what Fernando Mendoza has done, if you decide you're going to pass up on him in lieu of Jaxson Dart, you better be right about Jaxson Dart. And I get it. There is the opportunity cost of drafting yet another quarterback and foregoing what you could get in terms of the haul with the bevy of first-round picks that number one overall pick could command. But, man, that is a huge roll of the dice staying with Jaxson Dart, considering what we've seen from him and the injuries throughout the course of this season.
Actually, a very interesting thought and one I hadn't considered. If the season ended right now, the Giants would have the first pick. They're going to play the Raiders in Week 17 in what is the Super Bowl for draft people. That's going to. But the point is, the first pick in the draft is an asset.
Yeah.
Jaxson Dart is an asset. The question is it a certainty in your mind that they trade that top pick to someone who wants a quarterback, or do they consider, as Chris is suggesting, taking one?
Chris is a master takesman.
Yeah.
I appreciate the value of that take. It's
big dog.
It's well constructed.
Yeah.
However, it's so hard to find a quarterback to show what Jaxson Dart has shown this year. And if you think back through all the drafts, how many quarterbacks go in the top of the first round and turn out to not work out? Most of them.
Right.
You have one who has shown that he can do the things you need to do to be successful in the NFL. I get it. All quarterbacks have flaws. His flaw right now is you want to tell him to yield a little bit. And it's a lot easier to do that than to find a quarterback that's able to make the throws that he's able to make the runs that he's able to make. Of course, he needs to improve and mature. That's right. But I am not going back in the draft. It's so hard to find one of these. Just we get him one of them Guardian caps and we tell him to slide. I'm not going to draft someone else.
I guess the point, though, is if you look at it one way, if they were to trade the first pick in the draft, they'll get more for that than they would get if they traded Jaxson Dart. Now, I know that doesn't mean it's a more valuable. People prize these.
It's not a dumb. It's not an absurd take.
Right.
In a vacuum, though, Joe Schoen put his name on Jaxson Dart.
Right.
And he doesn't have the leverage to say, hey, a year later, actually, Jaxson, he actually plays a little too recklessly. We're going to actually go for Mendoza. We're going to trade him. I would think the strides we saw from Jaxson Dart, to your point, and also the way that the team galvanized, even in that early Chargers game, the players really respond to him.
Yep.
And the fan base likes him. They're not calling for him to be out. No. So safety concerns be damned, and we can work on that. It's been worked on before for several quarterbacks. Joe Schoen himself, if he is the GM still, he can't take a quarterback in back-to-back years.
Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, the injury concerns notwithstanding, which I understand they're a big concern. his style of play is a big concern. People got up in arms when he had the press conference where he said, I'm not changing the way I play.
This ain't soccer.
Everyone was like, boom, cut him, put him on the bench. He doesn't Okay, so is it a big risk? Okay, you better be right if you pass on Fernando Mendoza. You better be right if you draft Fernando Mendoza.
That's right.
And you get rid of Jaxson Dart, who has shown you I can make every throw in the NFL. Are you serious? I mean, like, what is the bigger risk is drafting, and I love Fernando Mendoza.
Yes.
Love him.
Well,
but that's the bigger risk.
This works out
than getting rid of this,
doesn't it? Because I just happen to have standing by, ready to answer this question, the person who analyzes these quarterbacks more and better than anyone, and that is our own Jordan Rodgers, who's getting set to cover all these college football playoff games, and we're going to dive into them a little bit later. But I'm bringing him on early because I want to ask him one question and one question only. Jordan Rodgers, in your opinion, is Fernando Mendoza a good enough prospect to consider moving on from Jaxson Dart for?
No, I don't think he is. And I love Fernando Mendoza. I agree with what Lewis said. I agree with what Peter said. The problem is Jaxson Dart is a force multiplier because of his ability with his legs. He can change the way you have to play defense. He can change the way he makes plays outside the pocket, those off-schedule plays. Fernando Mendoza can beat you from the pocket. He is so good, intellectual, accurate downfield, but it is so hard as a rookie to win in the NFL from the pocket without the ability to really hurt you with his legs. And I think that's the downside of his game. He can make a few plays outside the pocket, but he's not going to hurt you with his legs like Jaxson was able to do this year in the NFL, he was able to do in college. If Jaxson was coming out right now, he'd be the #1 quarterback. I think Fernando was the Heisman by default a little bit. It was not a great year for the Heisman quarterback. I think he's the #1 pick right now by default because all those guys we thought were going to be there fell off really hard. So I love Jaxson. He did it without Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo for most of the time as well. He's a dude you got to build around because he could be the next Josh Allen.
All right, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Jeff, give me a final word on this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, look, we criticize him because of his aggressiveness. That can be coached out, right? Like, and understand, like, we're up here to criticize and to try to help correct people. This is not an indictment that he can't play the position. He is a franchise quarterback. Jaxson Dart is what you want to build around. As an offensive lineman, I would love to block for him. Like, I would love to go block for a dude like that. Now, I'd yank him aside and be like, hey, bro, you gotta keep me getting paid. Like, you can't get knocked out.
Our money.
But I love his attitude. Like, you want to go fight for guys like that. Let me tell you something. What that guy is in the locker room, everybody in the league's looking for, dude. I'm just telling you, with Scatterbo, Neighbors, and him, and what Jordan just said, the environment matters. Don't ever miss the environment. Jaxson Dart creates an environment that people want to be around.
Very quick final word.
Think about the last time that you ever said about a football player, we need to get him out of here because he likes contact too.
Exactly.
Right, well,